Ethan was putting on his shoes while reminding me, "Babe, I'm heading out for a bit. I'll be back later tonight. Don't wait up to sleep." Go ahead. I interrupted him coolly as I got up and began clearing the dishes into the kitchen. He paused mid-motion. "Are you upset?" "No, it's going to rain tonight." "Take an umbrella with you," I said, being thoughtful. But instead of appreciating it, Ethan got annoyed. "Do you have to be so passive-aggressive? Rachel's asthma isn't something new, you know that. If I'm not there when she falls asleep, and she wakes up without me, what if something happens?" "You're right. Then go," I replied calmly, lowering my eyes as I wrung out the warm towel in my hands, no longer looking at him. "She's a patient. Can't you be more understanding?" Ethan said, his voice softening as it touched the towel I was holding. "She's a patient? So what, Lily isn't?" I snapped. When her fever had just gone down, I stayed by her side day and night without leaving once. "Where were you then, Ethan? You didn't say she was a patient." I couldn't hold it in anymore. "You're her father." Maybe he felt guilty because his lips moved as if to speak, but in the end, he said nothing. I walked around him and headed for Lily's bedroom. "Keep your voice down when you leave. Don't wake her." Ethan remained silent, just watching me quietly as I wiped Lily's body with the warm towel. After a long while, he finally muttered, "You and Lily both love the water chestnut cake from Chen's, right? I'll stop by and get some tonight if I get back early." I didn't reply. Ethan stood wordlessly outside the room. He stood there for so long that for a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd stay with Lily and me tonight. But then his phone rang. A woman's soft, delicate voice carried faintly through the hallway. Ethan let out a sigh, and in the end, he left. Chen's was all the way across town in the South End, really far from home. Back when we were dating, he used to get up before dawn just to line up there, so he could bring me the cake before my classes. But now, even when Lily begged him, he'd just press his fingers against his forehead and say, exhausted and impatient, "Daddy's really tired. I'll get it for you next time, okay?" My thoughts drifted. I stared quietly out the window. I hadn't eaten that cake in a long time. I should have felt happy that he remembered. But this time, I didn't want the water chestnut cake from the South Side. I didn't want him either. In just 7 more days, I would be free. The first time Ethan ever took Lily to a parent-teacher conference, Rachel was sick, the day she was supposed to get married. In the bustling school courtyard, Rachel called him in tears. "Ethan, I'm so anxious. Should I even be getting married? I feel terrible. I can't breathe. Can you come be with me?" Ethan stopped in his tracks, still holding Lily's hand. He spoke softly into the phone, trying to comfort her. Then, apologetically, he let go of Lily's hand. "Sorry, sweetheart. Daddy has something urgent to take care of. Let Mommy go with you to the meeting, okay?" Lily stayed silent, her usual sweet and obedient self. But the light in her eyes slowly faded. Ethan gently patted her head to comfort her. But just as he turned to leave, she grabbed the hem of his shirt. "Daddy, can you sign this for me?" Lily took out a neatly bound stack of test papers from her backpack and handed them to him, along with a pen. Every single page was a perfect score. Ethan froze for a second, then smiled and praised her without hesitation. "Our Lily is amazing, such a smart girl, a little genius." Ethan coaxed Lily gently again. "Isn't Mommy here with you? Let her go with you, okay?" Lily lowered her eyes, her long lashes trembling. Her voice was calm, almost emotionless. "My classmates say, what's the point of getting perfect scores? I'm still just a wild kid without a dad." The crying continued on the other end of Ethan's phone call. Suddenly, he dropped to a squat and pulled Lily into a tight embrace. He signed 10 test papers in just 30 seconds, his handwriting quick and sharp, so fast that he didn't even notice the divorce agreement tucked in between them. After signing the papers, Ethan kissed Lily's forehead. "Next time, Daddy will definitely come to your parent-teacher meeting. Let's see who dares to pick on our Lily again." Lily gave him a small smile, the same one she'd shown the first time she ever heard a promise from him. As I watched his back disappearing down the hall, I whispered, "Ethan, your chance is gone. It's gone forever." Since he left yesterday, Ethan still hadn't come home. I was packing up the couple's items to throw away, my heart utterly calm. It was always like this. Ever since Rachel announced her wedding, all it took was one phone call to make Ethan drop everything and run to her, no matter when, no matter what. I had protested before, of course. But Ethan would only look at me in disappointment, his eyes full of cold sarcasm. If there's really something going on between Rachel and me, then what do you matter anymore, Emily? The tears welled up uncontrollably. My mouth hung open, but not a single word came out. Only my chest ached like it had been pierced through. After that day, we barely spoke for a long time. Eventually, it was Rachel who pressured Ethan into coming to apologize in person. I didn't want to forgive him, but I couldn't bear to see Lily stuck between us, walking on eggshells, constantly torn. I thought giving in once might be enough. But I didn't expect it to become a pattern. There are things I'll never forget. It rained on my birthday. Ethan went out to help Rachel look for her lost cat and left me waiting in a restaurant for 2 hours. Another time, I had such severe period pain I couldn't stand, and on the way to the hospital, he left me at the subway entrance just because Rachel called him about changing a light bulb. She was afraid of heights. All he said to me was, "It's on the way anyway." Then, there was the scarf. I spent 2 months learning to knit it for him. The very next day, it was around Rachel's neck, one insult after another. Everyone carved into memory. And this time was no different. I held my phone, quietly waiting for Rachel to post on her social media. Sure enough, not long after, she uploaded a photo. She wore a pure white wedding gown, her arm intimately wrapped around the man beside her. The caption read, "Wearing the gown he gave me." I guess that means I've married him in some way, right? The man's face wasn't visible, but after so many years of sharing the same bed, how could I not recognize that familiar figure? I stared at the photo for a long time. Then, calmly, I gave it my first and only like. 1 minute later, Rachel deleted the post. And Ethan messaged me right after. "Baby, don't get the wrong idea. I was just trying on the tux for Rachel, like a stand-in model. She wanted to see how it would look on someone." I chuckled quietly. If it had been before, I probably would have snapped back with sarcasm. "What? She's getting married without a groom and needs you to model for her." But now, I simply typed one word. "Okay." As I was putting Lily to bed, Ethan came home. There was mousse still in his hair. The makeup on his face hadn't been removed. He looked like he had just rushed over straight after taking off the groom's suit. Seeing I was still awake, he brightened. "Were you waiting for me?" "Sorry, babe. Rachel's fiancé was out of town and couldn't make it back in time, so I went with her to choose the wedding dress. Just helped out, that's all. We only took one photo." He explained quickly, like he was afraid I'd misunderstand. I gave a soft, indifferent, I cut off his explanation. "I got it." Ethan froze. Seeing that I didn't show any reaction, he turned to leave, but then took a step back and grabbed my hand. A chill rushed through me, mingled with a faint scent of pastries. It was only then that I noticed the water chestnut cake he was holding. Snow was falling outside. His hair and eyelashes were dusted with frost and sweat. He looked like a pale ice sculpture, frozen stiff. Only the cake in his arms radiated warmth. "I lined up for this today. It's still warm." He opened the box, looking directly at me. I silently took it and placed it on the table without a word. "Thank you. Is there anything else you want to say?" His grip on my hand tightened. A dark haze crept into his eyes. Now that he was closer, I noticed the lipstick stain on the collar of his shirt. Bold, vivid, glaring red. I lifted my hand and calmly wiped it off. "Your shirt's dirty," I said. Ethan's expression darkened. His grip on my wrist became painfully tight, but he seemed oblivious to it. He stared at me with cold, burning anger. "You're not angry?" I looked at him steadily and pulled my hand free. "If there's nothing else, I'm going to bed." But suddenly, Ethan snapped. He pushed me hard against the wall, pinning me there. "Even playing hard to get has its limits. Isn't this what you wanted? To get my attention? Fine, I admit it, you win." With that, he leaned in. His kiss, laced with rage, fell on my cheek, then my neck. I gasped in shock, my mind going completely blank. But when I caught sight of that glaring red lipstick stain again, nausea and fury surged uncontrollably. My stomach churned. I covered my mouth, struggling with all my strength to break free. But the difference in strength between men and women was overwhelming. No matter how hard I pushed or shoved, Ethan held me firmly in place. When my resistance failed, I slowly stopped fighting. I slumped against the wall in despair, tears streaming uncontrollably from my eyes. Ethan finally stopped. He looked at my tears, now panicked and agitated. I saw confusion and fear flicker in his gaze. Pressing his forehead to the side of my neck, he spoke in a low, muffled voice. Emily, don't be like this. Don't be like what? I was the one being held down. I was the one being forced. What was he afraid of? The phone rang. It was Rachel. Again. Ethan stared at me as he picked it up. Rachel was crying, breathless, saying she was scared, but Ethan only kept his eyes on mine, his tone firm but his gaze begging. Stay with me, Emily. Just say the word. I think you should go, I said softly, looking away. Don't keep her waiting too long. Ethan looked at me, then let out a bitter laugh. His voice turned sharp. Fine, Emily. Very well. He threw the box of water chestnut cake to the floor and stormed out without looking back. The delicate pastries shattered into pieces across the ground. I stared at the mess, unable to stop the exhaustion from flooding my chest. He had forgotten that I used to beg him to stay, many, many times. All I ever got in return were accusations, that I was immature, making a fuss over nothing, cold, and unreasonable. But this time I was tired. I didn't want to beg him anymore. Now that I had become exactly what he always wanted, understanding, generous, considerate, why was he still so upset? Mommy. Lily's weak voice suddenly rang out. The moment I rushed into the bedroom, my pupils shrank in fear. Lily's face was pale. Lily's breathing was rapid, and her entire body began to convulse. She kept calling out, Mommy, unconsciously. My hands were shaking as I scooped her up, my mind going completely blank. Lily, what's wrong? Please don't scare Mommy. Don't scare me, baby. I was terrified. I reached out and felt her burning forehead. The fever was back. She needed to go to the hospital. Frantic, I fumbled for my phone and called Ethan. My voice already carried a trace of sobbing. Pick up, Ethan. Pick up the phone. I called 5 times in a row, all busy. I opened WeChat and sent him message after message. Pick up the phone. Lily's burning up. She's convulsing. Please come back and take her to the hospital. She can't wait anymore. Please, Ethan, come back. After a long wait, Ethan finally replied with a single voice message. His tone was cold and dismissive. Enough with the act, Emily. It's exhausting and frankly disgusting. Once you've overplayed the game, it stops being interesting. So all along, he'd thought this was just some game of cat and mouse I was playing. The phone slipped from my hand and shattered on the ground, along with the last bit of hope and denial I'd been clinging to. A deep chill spread through my chest. I held Lily tightly. All the panic, all the heartbreak, condensed into one thing: calm. I quickly wiped my tears away and dialed 911. By the time the ambulance sirens pierced the night, Lily had already lost consciousness. As I dashed barefoot downstairs, I stepped on shattered beer bottles. Blood-red footprints trailed all the way to the emergency room. I waited outside, barely able to stand from the pain that was now beginning to register. Time dragged on in agony. It felt so long, the pain in my feet had already gone numb. Then a message pulled me out of my daze. It was from Rachel. Her voice was as soft and sweet as always, with a hint of shy affection. Emily, I hope you don't mind me borrowing Ethan for a couple of days. It's my fault. I told him I was feeling anxious before the wedding, and he offered to take me around for a bit. He probably won't be back soon. I'm sorry to trouble you with taking care of Lily alone. At the end of the voice message, I could hear Ethan's annoyed voice in the background. What are you telling her that for? My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. I looked up at the cold, blinding lights above the ER and fought to hold back the sting behind my eyes. Just as I was about to power off my phone, it rang again. It was my supervisor, Leon. Emily, great news. I secured the housing benefit for you, plus an elementary school admission spot. I heard there's a top specialist in North City who treats Lily's condition. Are you really not considering a transfer to our North City branch? It'll be tough, sure, but think about the future. I'll go, I cut her off. What? Leanne sounded caught off guard. I took a deep breath and, through my hoarse voice, repeated, Leanne, I'm willing to transfer to the South District office with you. Leanne was overjoyed, saying, great, 3 times in a row. After thanking her, I immediately went home and began packing. The house was empty. I opened Rachel's social media. Her latest post showed her location, a hotel in another city. Perfect. 5 days left. By the time they returned, the cooling-off period would be over. I looked around the home we had shared for 10 years. Everything, every corner, every detail, had been sorted and packed bit by bit over the past month. Now there wasn't much left to take. Before I shut the door, I glanced one last time at the wedding photo in the living room, then tossed it into the trash. The moment I dropped the divorce papers in the mailbox, I couldn't even describe how I felt. Watching the crowd bustle past the airport security gate, I finally let out a long breath and boarded the plane to North City. Just then, my best friend Jenna sent a message. "Emily, major news. Rachel was never getting married. Everyone she hired was fake. She made the whole thing up to fool you." My eyes widened, and I gripped the armrest tightly. So it was true. Everything had been orchestrated by Ethan alone. A performance entirely of his own making. His intentions were crystal clear, but none of it had anything to do with me anymore. My hand slowly loosened its grip as I looked out the window at the sea of clouds. Whatever happened between the two of them, I didn't care. I wasn't concerned anymore. For once, Ethan was unusually quiet. He stood outside the fitting room, restlessly scrolling through his phone. Every time he went out with Rachel, he would flood me with calls and messages, so many it was suffocating. But this time, not a single word. He claimed Lily had a fever again and woke up in a panic, but he had seen with his own eyes that she'd fallen asleep peacefully. How could she suddenly be feverish again? It had to be another one of Emily's tricks. He admitted that, yes, her little act had shaken him a bit this time. But she should also know his patience had limits. He'd already given her a chance. Ethan's gaze landed on the last 3 messages Emily had sent. But what if this time something had actually happened to Lily? Before he could dwell on that thought, his eyes were suddenly covered. "Ethan, you're gonna love this surprise," Rachel whispered sweetly, gently covering his eyes and guiding him forward. Fireworks burst into the air. When he opened his eyes, he saw Rachel standing before him in a dazzling wedding dress, the long train sparkling with tiny crystals. Her face glowed with happiness as she held out a document. "Ethan, I'm so happy we can finally be together, openly, for real." Suddenly a tightness seized Ethan's chest. A creeping sense of dread crawled up his spine. "Ethan, Emily already signed," Rachel's words cut off. Ethan's eyes locked on the divorce papers in her hand. He snatched them away. "No way," he said in disbelief. He clutched the thin stack of pages tightly, hands trembling. "But your signature is right here," Rachel said softly. Ethan froze. Then it hit him. Lily's test papers. That day she had handed him a stack of perfectly scored sheets. Fury surged through him. Emily really had gone too far this time. She had the nerve to trick him like this. Wasn't she always playing games, throwing tantrums to get his attention? Wasn't she always trying to outshine Rachel in his heart? Fine. If that's what she wanted, he'd give it to her. He raised his hand and tore the divorce papers to shreds, the pages scattering like confetti. He turned and stormed out. "Ethan, where are you going?" Rachel cried, grabbing his arm. Ethan yanked free without looking back. "To find my wife." Rachel, unable to stop him, shouted desperately behind him. "She already wants a divorce. What kind of wife is that?" Ethan, look at me. I'm still wearing the wedding dress you picked out for me. Don't you want to marry me?" He halted in his tracks, then slowly turned back, expression blank. "That's just your fantasy," he said coldly. "I've only ever seen you as a sister." But Rachel refused to believe it. "Then why were you so good to me? Why did we take wedding photos? Why did you come with me to the hotel? Are you really saying you don't feel anything for me?" Tears streamed down her face, but Ethan suddenly fell silent. He believed he'd done nothing wrong. Nothing inappropriate had ever happened between him and Rachel. Even that lipstick mark, he told himself it must have been accidental, from when they were changing outfits. But if Rachel misunderstood, then what about Emily? How devastated must she have been? For the first time, regret pierced Ethan's heart. He started walking faster. Rachel lifted the hem of her dress and ran after him in tears. "Ethan, come back, Ethan." But Ethan didn't stop. He didn't have time to figure out why Rachel had faked an entire wedding to trick him. His mind was filled with only one thing. He had to get to North City and bring Emily back. He had to make her understand. She was his wife, and she had to remain his wife, for life. At that moment, Emily picked up a call from Ethan. Just as Lily was wheeled into the operating room, I glanced at my phone and hung up the call. But Ethan didn't let it go. He kept calling, one after another. Leanne was sitting outside with me. He already knew everything that had happened. When he saw Ethan's name flashing on my screen, he rolled his eyes. "I'm telling you, don't you dare go soft now," he warned. "Men like him, they're shameless. They'll do anything to trick you into coming back. Don't fall for it." I gave a faint smile and shut my phone off. "Don't worry, I won't." Leanne turned to stare at the doors of the operating room, puzzled. "I heard this specialist just returned from overseas. Really hard to book. I was getting ready to call in favors to get you in, but the moment they heard your name, they accepted the case right away. Do you know him?" I was completely at a loss. "I thought you were the one who helped arrange it?" Leon looked just as confused. But that confusion didn't last long. The door of the operating room opened, and a man in a white coat walked out. Calm and clear-eyed, he extended a hand to me. "It's been a long time, Emily." I looked into his eyes, his face, and reached out my hands slowly. It felt like a lifetime ago. "Yeah, it really has, Ethan." This man, Ethan Shee, was the son of my high school literature teacher, and he was also my ex-boyfriend. Even back then, he had been the kind of person people called a prodigy. Like many teachers, my literature teacher loved to talk about his child in class, how mature he was, how exceptional, how proud he made his parents. Once, a bold girl had asked in class, "Is your son handsome, sir?" Someone beside her laughed and said, "His son is that senior Ethan Shee in grade 12. Don't you know?" The girl blushed before they even finished the sentence. Ethan Shee. I twirled my pen in class, thinking not about the honor roll photo of his face that had been touched and worn down, but about the glaring row of test scores beneath it. Later, we both got into the same university. I hadn't expected him to even remember me. "You're Emily, right? The one who was like a cheat code back in sophomore year? My mom used to talk about you all the time." I was both flattered and not surprised. After all, I had always been the so-called model student in my parents' eyes. Naturally talented people recognized one another. Eventually, we ended up together. He was kind, gentle, and reasonable, courteous, and self-controlled. He never crossed boundaries. That sense of restraint made me feel safe, but also distant. To others, we were the perfect couple on campus. Everyone said he adored me, but I never truly felt it. It was like a face trapped beneath ice. No matter how passionate or fiery his unspoken love might have been, all I could sense was the cold layer above it. And then he went abroad for school. That ice finally cracked. Between two people who were too smart for drama, the breakup was clean, even graceful. Not long after, I met Ethan Zhang, and that was it. We never contacted each other again. Years passed. I never imagined our paths would cross again like this. Outside the hospital room, I rehearsed what to say in my head. But when I opened my mouth, only one dry line came out. "Thank you." Ethan Shee smiled. "You don't need to thank me, it's my job." Looking at Lily lying in the hospital bed, I couldn't help but feel worried. "My daughter is Shee." "Don't worry. The surgery was a complete success. All she needs now is rest and recovery." "That's good." A huge weight lifted off my chest. I finally let out a deep, steadying breath. "Thank you for helping me with something so important. If you have time, can I treat you to a meal sometime?" He hesitated slightly. "Sure." I felt a bit awkward and quickly added, "If not, that's okay too. I know you must be busy." But he smiled again. "I'm not. I've got time." Just then, a frigid, furious voice cut in. "So this is why you were so eager to divorce me?" So that was it. He thought I had already found someone else. I turned my head. Ethan was standing not far away, expressionless. "This is Ethan Shee," I said calmly. "My ex-husband." Ethan Zhang's hands, hanging at his sides, suddenly clenched into tight fists. His face was dark as a storm cloud. "Emily, I haven't agreed to the divorce yet." I ignored him and turned toward the hospital room, but he grabbed my arm and pulled me back. "Emily, come home with me right now. I'll forget everything that happened before." I frowned. "Let go." But Ethan acted as if he didn't hear me and kept talking. "I admit I was cold to you before, but that's because I was thinking about Rachel. She's a patient. I was misled, but I promise you, it will never happen again." "Are you done?" I asked. "Then let go." I looked him straight in the eye. "Ex-husband," Ethan Shee said with a polite smile. "Didn't you hear her? She said to let go." He gently pried Ethan Zhang's hand off my wrist. His movements were elegant, yet carried a quiet authority that didn't allow for refusal. Apparently, the word ex-husband struck a nerve. Ethan Jang glared at Ethan Shi, the corners of his eyes red with fury. Who the hell do you think you are? Emily is my wife. Ethan Shi looked down at him from his taller height, gaze sharp and cold. Ethan Jang was already tall, over 6 feet, but Ethan Shi was even taller. And when he stared at someone without expression, he had the intimidating stillness of a snow-capped mountain. Ethan Jang's angry outburst drew stares from people nearby. Embarrassed and frustrated, I quickly turned to Ethan Shi and apologized. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag you into this. His expression softened. It's all right. Then Ethan Jang spat bitterly. Emily, your man isn't even dead yet and you're already flirting with someone else. I turned and slapped him hard. If you still have even a shred of conscience, I said coldly, go in there and look at your daughter, who just came out of surgery, instead of throwing a tantrum in the hallway. And who do you think you are to judge me? Did you forget about your dream girl, Rachel? Ethan Jang froze. His Adam's apple bobbed. He didn't look at me again. I whispered another apology to Ethan Shi and walked into the hospital room. Ethan Jang followed. The moment he saw Lily lying in the bed, unconscious and fragile, his eyes filled with memories. His lips parted, and after a long silence he finally murmured, I'm sorry. I thought you were using Lily to trick me into coming back. I let out a cold laugh, finishing the sentence for him. He opened his mouth again, then said quietly, I'm sorry. The room fell into a heavy silence. He stood behind me, watching as I pulled the blanket up to Lily's chest. After a moment, he spoke again. I really do only think of Rachel as a sister. That lipstick mark, it was an accident. It happened when we were changing outfits, and the trip. I only went with her because that day you made me so angry and I just acted on impulse. I understand, I said blandly. Ethan Jang blinked, confused by my calmness. He frowned. Emily, I explained everything to you. Why are you still being like this? Is the sarcasm really necessary? My tone didn't change. You should have received the divorce papers by now. The Civil Affairs office opens on Friday. Let's go finalize the paperwork then. His anger flared instantly. Emily, I'm warning you, enough is enough. When Lily wakes up, we're going back to Yun City. I'll pretend I never saw those papers. When I didn't respond, he softened his voice again. Emily, I know I messed up, but you can't just sentence me to death over one mistake. Please, don't go through with the divorce. I love you and Lily more than anything. You love me and Lily? I lowered my head and laughed under my breath. You mean when Lily waited 3 months for you to come to a single parent-teacher meeting? And yet, on my birthday, you spent 6 hours leaving me alone at a restaurant while you took Rachel for a walk in the park. You watched the sunrise with her, then came back at dawn with a wilted bouquet of roses. Or that time when I fell down the stairs and all you cared about was catching her, who was pretending to trip. You stood there and watched me crash down, breaking my tailbone, only to scold me afterward for playing the victim. Even when Lily had a fever and almost died, you were still by her side. By the time I finished speaking, my eyes were burning red. I had told myself not to cry for him again, but the heat swelling behind my eyes refused to be contained. Ethan, you really do love us, don't you? I said quietly. With every word I spoke, Ethan's face turned a shade paler. My words, like sharp blades, cut straight through him, one by one. His fists were clenched, his lips parted, then closed. He couldn't say a single word, but I didn't feel the satisfaction of winning an argument. There was no triumph in it, only a strange bitterness that made my chest ache. Because I knew, clearly, that every word I'd said had hurt me too. Daddy, we both turned at the same time. Lily was awake. Her small, pale face turned to Ethan. She looked so fragile it broke my heart. Lily, how are you feeling? Ethan rushed to the bedside, quickly reaching for her hand. But Lily's palm was clenched tightly around a wrinkled little piece of paper. It was the wish check Ethan had given her when she turned 6, a promise that she could ask for anything, and he would grant it. She had held on to it for a long time, never knowing what to use it for. Should she ask him to take her to Disneyland? To come to a parent-teacher conference? Or maybe just to read her a bedtime story? None of those wishes ever came true. Because Ethan always had a call he couldn't miss. Because Rachel cried. Because Rachel was sick. Because Rachel was upset. So now, even as she lay in the hospital, burning with fever, that little check was still tightly gripped in her hand. Lily's lips moved slightly. Her voice was so soft it almost disappeared. "Daddy, can I use my wish now?" "Yes, sweetheart," Ethan said immediately, holding her hand tightly. "Anything you want, Daddy will do it." "Then can you leave?" she whispered. "I don't want to see you anymore." Ethan froze. He blinked slowly, as if the words hadn't registered. "What?" I stood there stunned, staring at Lily in disbelief. "My wish," she said softly, "is for you to go. I don't want to see Mommy cry anymore. I don't want to hear you both fighting. I just want Mommy to live happily again, without being sad because of you. Please, Daddy, don't make her cry anymore." The color drained from Ethan's face. He stood there like a lifeless sculpture, rooted to the floor. That tiny piece of paper suddenly weighed more than a mountain. It crushed the air out of his lungs. "Okay, Daddy will listen," he said hoarsely, forcing a stiff smile onto his face. Then he turned and walked away with slow, heavy steps. I couldn't hold back anymore. I wrapped my arms around Lily and sobbed quietly. In the days that followed, Ethan canceled all his work appointments and visited the hospital every day. He brought Lily the Lena Bell plush she'd always wanted. He brought me blue roses, my favorite. He stopped wearing suits, took off his watch, and started cooking my favorite dishes himself. It was like he was trying to make up for every moment he had failed us over the years. But he never mentioned the divorce again. In the hospital room, Ethan's voice was soft and low. "Lily, this is your favorite toy. I'm so sorry, sweetie. I promise I'll never hurt you or Mommy again. Can you forgive me?" Lily didn't say much. She lowered her gaze and whispered, "Thank you, Daddy." Her polite, distant reply hit Ethan like a punch to the chest. Still, he forced a gentle smile. "Okay then. Rest up. I'll come back this afternoon to see you again." Out in the hallway, he handed me a cup of steaming porridge. I made seafood congee myself. "The fish and shrimp were flown in from South City this morning," he said. "Try it. I know your stomach hasn't been well." "It'll make your stomach feel better," Ethan said. Steam rose gently from the cup, fragrant and warm. And just like that, I remembered the night I worked late until dawn, clutching my stomach from pain. Ethan didn't even bother to call someone to bring me medicine. He'd stayed home with Rachel, happily making shrimp dumplings instead. A sharp pain twisted through my chest. I lowered my eyes, glanced at the congee, and instinctively tried to hand it back. "Thanks, but I'm not hungry." "When you have time, can we go?" Ethan's voice trembled. "Emily," he suddenly interrupted, his eyes red and glistening. "I'm not getting divorced. I won't let you divorce me." He looked straight at me, his sharp features filled with pleading. "I know I've been a total bastard. I messed up so badly. But how can you be so heartless? You're not even giving me a chance to fix this. Didn't you used to love me the most?" I let out a sigh. I didn't want to argue with him anymore. I turned to leave, only to bump straight into Ethan Shee. I felt awkward, not knowing how much he might have overheard. Ethan Shee glanced at the cup of porridge in my hand, then looked at Ethan Jang. Smiling slightly, he asked, "Perfect timing. I'm actually a bit hungry. Emily, if you don't mind, can I have this? I think the hospital cafeteria is already closed." His tone was perfectly polite, but there was a subtle, almost pitiable softness to it. Ethan Jang's face tightened. "That's something I made for my wife," he growled. "And Emily, are you something he can just give away?" Before he could say more, I quickly shoved the porridge into Ethan Shee's hands like it was burning my fingers. Ethan Jang's face flushed deep red, furious and humiliated, while Ethan Shee just stood there with a relaxed smile, clearly unfazed by the tension between us. "I'll be going now," he said casually. Ethan Jang rushed after me, his voice full of wounded pride. "Emily, how could you give food I made for you to someone else?" Had he forgotten already? Back when Rachel had just returned, he told me she was weak and needed nourishment. He said my cooking was perfect and begged me to take care of her health. No onions, no garlic, everything light and a little sweet. He gave me every little detail, like I was her personal chef. Heaven forbid I mess anything up. But now, the moment I handed food he made to someone else, he acted like I'd committed treason. What a hypocrite. I let out a quiet laugh and stopped responding. For 2 whole months, Ethan Jang refused to leave the hospital. Rachel called him dozens of times, begging him to come back. He ignored every call, until finally, Rachel couldn't take it anymore. She went straight to Ethan's assistant at the company, asking him to record a video message. On screen, she looked pale and frail, tears streaking her delicate face. "Ethan," she said weakly, "I know I shouldn't have lied to you, but you've always been so important to me. You were family to me since we were young. I just loved you too much. I'm sorry. I've been blaming myself every day since you left. I wanted to apologize to you and to Emily in person. But now my heart, it's getting worse every day. I feel like I'm dying. I'm not asking for you to love me. I'm not even asking you to accept my apology. I just want to see you one last time. Can you please come back?" Ethan Jang turned away from the screen, his jaw clenched, hands trembling, then loosening again. I sat beside Lily, silently peeling an apple. I said nothing. The silence between us was stifling. Finally, he gritted his teeth. "Emily, wait for me." I didn't stop peeling, but the thin strip of skin broke halfway through. Before leaving, Ethan swore, This will be the last time. Once it's over, I'll come straight back." "All right," I said with a small nod and a smile, closing the hospital room door behind him. While he was gone, I moved back and forth between the hospital and the office, barely finding time to eat. My stomach throbbed with sharp pain, and the dizziness in my vision only got worse. Before I could even make it to the hospital doors, my vision went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was in Ethan Shee's office. He was sitting right in front of me, staring at me intently, not blinking once. When he saw I was awake, Ethan Shee brought me a glass of water and gently helped me drink it. "I know you've been busy lately," he said, "but you still need to take care of your health. I'll check in on Lily at the hospital. You can focus on work without worry." His movements were natural, but there was a gentleness in them that felt out of place. I wasn't a naive girl anymore. I knew what he meant. And honestly, if it weren't for Ethan Shee helping take care of Lily these past few weeks, I wouldn't have had even a moment to breathe. I paused, then hesitated. "Ethan, as you can see, I just came out of a failed marriage, so I'm not really thinking about anything like that right now." He averted his eyes, a little uncomfortable. "I understand. Don't feel pressured." Bang! The office door slammed open. Ethan Jang stood at the doorway, covered in dust and wind, his expression ice-cold. "What the hell are you doing with my wife?" Ethan Shee frowned. "Mr. Jang, please close the door. Emily's sick. She can't be exposed to cold air." Ethan Jang barged in and stood in front of me, shielding me like a wall, staring at Ethan Shee with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks, but I'll take care of my wife myself." Ethan Shee let out a sarcastic chuckle. "Funny how you only remember she's your wife now. Where was that energy when you left her for another woman?" He added flatly, "I thought you'd died somewhere." Ethan Jang's face turned stone cold in an instant. Just as the two men looked ready to throw punches, I closed my eyes in exhaustion and said hoarsely, "Ethan, are you really still trying to fool yourself? Let it go. It's better for both of us." Ethan's eyes suddenly turned red. He looked like a lost child. "Emily, just give me a little more time. I swear I'll make it up to you and Lily. Please believe me, no one will ever love you more than I do." A cold snort cut through the room. Ethan Shee checked his watch with a smirk. "Big words from an ex-husband. Aren't you afraid your tongue might twist from lying so hard?" Ethan Jang glared at him, just about to respond, but Ethan Shee cut in. "Ex-husband, please leave. This is my private office. Don't make me call security." He stretched out his arm toward the door, emphasizing every word of ex-husband with calm precision. Ethan Jang clenched his jaw, his eyes sharp like blades, staring Ethan Shee down as if he could burn a hole through him. But all he could do was force down his rage and turn to me. "Emily, wait for me. I'm not giving up." Ethan Shee kept his smile, but his eyes screamed one thing: get lost. After that, Ethan Jang stayed glued to Lily and me, never leaving our sides. Every time I mentioned the divorce, he'd choke up, beg for forgiveness, and swear he'd cut Rachel out of his life completely. I didn't budge. If he was willing to drag this out, then so was I. The day Lily was discharged from the hospital, I took her to Disneyland just like I'd promised. Ethan Jang followed from a distance. Not too close, not too far. It was Lily's happiest day, but none of us could have expected what would happen when we left the park. I was holding Lily's hand and didn't notice the silver-gray sedan speeding toward us. "Watch out!" Ethan Jang's shout was hoarse and sharp. He dropped everything and sprinted toward us. Everything slowed down. I watched helplessly as the car got closer and closer. There was no time to move. Then, like lightning, a black car burst out from the side and slammed hard into the speeding one. Bang! A deafening crash rang out. In the chaos, Ethan Jang threw his arms around me and Lily, shoving us backward just in time. We narrowly escaped the collision, but he wasn't so lucky. The impact sent him flying, his body slamming into the grass nearby. He didn't move. Smoke poured out of the silver-gray car. Behind the shattered windshield was Rachel. She was quickly dragged away by police. Her expression was devastated, her eyes wild, teetering on the edge of madness. We promised each other when we were kids. I was going to be your bride, Ethan. How could you break your promise? How could you be so cruel? Ethan She stumbled out from another car and rushed toward me. Emily, are you okay? Ethan She's voice was trembling. Before I could respond, tears spilled down my face. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. Hang in there. The ambulance is almost here. 911's on the way. 3 days later, Ethan Jang woke up and agreed to the divorce. He lay in the hospital bed, face pale, a bandage wrapped around his head, one leg suspended in a sling. When he saw me, he struggled to sit up straight. We stared at each other in silence. After a long moment, his voice came out hoarse. I'm sorry, I almost got you and Lily. He paused, clearly trying to hold back the lump in his throat. I know I've made so many mistakes. I was selfish, always clinging on with false hope. But now, all I seem to bring you is danger and pain. I'm sorry, I won't hold you back anymore. I just want you both to be safe. Let's get the divorce. Outside, the sunlight was bright and warm. Suddenly, I remembered that afternoon in college when we first started dating. How carefully he'd asked me, his face flushed, if he could be my boyfriend. The sunlight had cast a golden glow around him, so dazzling I couldn't look directly at him. From meeting each other, growing close, and falling in love, we'd walked through 16 years together. But even the deepest vows made under heaven eventually unravel. I took a quiet, steady breath, forcing down the sting welling in my eyes. All right, Monday at the Civil Affairs office, I'll meet you there. Ethan's eyes reddened instantly, his voice trembled. Emily, can I hold you one last time? I stopped in my tracks. I didn't look back. Rest up, I said softly. He didn't speak again. The only sound behind me was the quiet click of a sob caught in his throat. The day I received my divorce certificate, Ethan She came by. The injury on his arm hadn't fully healed yet. When he moved, he winced from the pain, but the smile in his eyes couldn't be hidden. Congratulations on being a free woman again, Emily. I gave him a helpless look. You shouldn't be out and about with that arm. Despite what I said, I truly was grateful to him. If he hadn't slammed his car into Rachel's to stop her, I didn't even want to imagine what would have happened to Lily and me. As for why he'd shown up that day, we both understood, without needing to say it. I didn't resist the feelings I had toward Ethan She, but I wasn't ready to dive into a new relationship either. He seemed to understand what I was thinking. Don't feel pressured, he said gently. I meant it when I said it. All those years apart, I regretted it every single day. He looked into my eyes. Honestly, I came to your wedding. I saw you marry him. That was the day I realized what I'd lost and how much I'd failed to express what you meant to me. I don't want to lose you again. Surprised, I raised an eyebrow. In response, Ethan She lifted a book he'd been holding. The cover read, in big, bold letters, How to be a good husband and father. I rolled my eyes. You wish you want to be Lily's stepdad? Get in line. That's what I'm doing, isn't it? He replied with a smug grin. I couldn't help but laugh. The street was full of lush green trees, and the soft spring breeze brushed against my skin. In that moment, I felt like I was finally starting over.